Hello guys and welcome to episode 16 of What the Tech. My name is Adam Lobo.
Hey, my name is Vernon.
And thank you so much for tuning in for episode number 16. I'm glad that this is going on for a very long time, and thank you, Vernon, for always being around. So
Most welcome. It's an honor.
We truly appreciate
And fun.
your presence. Yeah. As long as we're having fun and of course delivering the news in a more fun way, I think that is very much important. True. I have to say, it's very tough when I do the short form videos because of when we have conversations like this, it's never scripted. So when for example, like you ask me a question or I ask you a question, what happens is that by the time I give you the answer, it's like a bit here, a bit here, a bit here, a bit here. So when I'm doing the short form, it's like, oh my God, where is it? And sometimes I rearrange it, but that is what makes this unique lah. Okay, so for this week's tech news is a little interesting because we have some very interesting news based on AI. The first news is a fully AI-generated movie, which is coming out really soon. This is, of course, a collaboration between Malaysia and Singapore. We'll talk about that. Three other news goes down to the leaks and the rumors, which is usually something which drives this podcast, which is the Samsung Interchangeable Lens patent. The S25H leaks, and also apparently is going to be releasing really soon. So as of the recording of this video, it's coming really soon, several days from now. And previously,
I'm surprised it's not leaked out in the open as usual.
Right? So
like completely, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in detail.
Maybe tomorrow. Who knows?
The fourth news is also a bit funny because suddenly out of nowhere, we are talking about iPhone 19 Air. Isn't it supposed to be 17? So now it's changed to potentially 19.
I shook my head when I saw this. I'm like,
I
really?
shook my head.
Are we talking about this? Okay.
Yeah, so we have to because it's still news in a way. But what I am really excited is to talk about our community segment, which is my favorite segment that we have on this particular channel. Why? Because, here's where we kind of get your overall input, and we had the community segment, right? So the community segment was based on whether or not you think which is better to be in a smartphone camera, if you had a choice. Is it the wide angle camera, telephoto camera, or even the macro camera? We had 159 votes 1 day ago, which is good. So we love this feedback which is coming from all of you all. So yes, thank you so much. So I can't wait to talk about this because I would love to know your input in this. At the same time, I would love to give my input because at first it was different, right? I had a different input to this, and then after looking at this, I'm like, kind of right. So yeah, let's first talk about the first news. AI generated movie. Now the movie is called The Pirate Queen, which is Zheng Yi-sao. Now, at first impressions, thank you.
Actually, I don't know whether that's the correct way.
I'm glad. I was actually very proud. I was like, oh yeah, baby.
Sounds very convincing.
So here's the thing. At first impressions, when I look at a poster, I had no idea what's the movie about. But being the only recently interested person when it comes to history, I was like, oh my God, this is the story of, whereby this particular pirate took over when her husband passed away. Okay. So I didn't know. So that it's actually a very famous story. So I didn't know about it until I had, to wiki it and to find out. This is going to be, Vernon, the very first AI GC movie.
Full AI.
Full AI. The poster does give me some Genghis Khan meets Pirates of the Caribbean kind of look and feel to it.
But it also has a very typical AI kind of look, right?
Yeah. I mean, because we are familiar with it, so it does look AI. Okay. If you ask anybody who plays around with AI, can tell it. But your uncles and aunties might not know, although we might be uncle. So yes, but you get what I mean. It's like we know because we deal with tech on a daily basis. It is a collaboration between Future Studios, Malaysia. Funnily enough, I went and tried to do research and I cannot find any information on Future Studios. Maybe they are going to create it with AI. The company, I don't know. If you guys are Future Studios, please give us more information because we would love to, give people context of the studio.
But it could be a JV, right? So it's a very new company.
So it could be a new company. And then it's Fizz Dragon. What a name for a production company that is from Singapore. It's going to be in Chinese. The release is going to be on the April 24th. Is it April? I don't know. I probably got the date wrong
April
here.
20th. No, it's expected
May?
to hit cinemas in June or July this year.
Okay, June or July. Before we talk about the questions, what are your thoughts about a movie which is fully generated by AI, first and foremost?
I mean, I'm on the fence on this one.
Ooh.
I mean, you know that generative AI has improved by leaps and bounds. And generally, I think it's very impressive that an entire movie was made out of AI.
Yeah.
But then the question is, how far is too far? Imagine a movie where there are no actual actors that we can recognize, at least. I mean, obviously there's voice actors and all that stuff, but it's not the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the same camera crew, not the same kind of production level, probably.
Yeah.
So, and since there are no live actors, do we call it an animated film?
Wow. I didn't think of that.
Can we consider it as an animated film? You know, like those, animated films, whether it's Final Fantasy, where they did like live action, but it's actually animated. You know what I mean?
You've got a point, because one of the questions that I would like to understand is that what is the type of machines they use and how much of a post-production is being done behind the scenes? Because for people who usually go through this whole entire issue, right? I don't know why the GoBo turned off. So for those of you who are looking to do these AI ones, right? So what happens is that you have the issue with fingers and hands, right? So every time when you do something with AI, there's that issue with the fingers and the hands.
You know that's not natural.
Yeah,
right?
so
or you have 6 fingers.
I'm trying to understand what software that they're going to be using. And from there, they also need to find out how much of a post-production is being done.
Yeah.
And if there's going to be a lot of post-production being done,
Definitely a lot of post-production.
we need to know whether or not, like your answer is that if it's going to be a lot of post-production, then it might as well just be an animated movie rather than a fully AI movie. But what is it that you don't like about this factor? Because for me, I'm excited because I want to see it. But how are you on the fence when it comes to this particular situation?
I guess it's being a little bit concerned for the film industry per se. Like what happens to actors, what happens to film crew, you know, that kind of stuff. If we're completely replaced by machines. Of course, in the end, in any film, it's all about storytelling. So it doesn't matter how you tell the story, whether it's through a caricature or a cartoon strip or an animated feature or live action, it doesn't really matter. But if you tell a good story, it doesn't matter what channels that you use.
Okay.
And I think one major issue that always crops up when you talk about AI is intellectual property.
Yeah.
So you may see bits and pieces from maybe what you recognize out there, right? And how generative AI works is that, you know, you get bits and pieces that's all kind of gelled together into an image or a video. So what about that as a question?
Yeah.
And I think also the question about creativity, are we kind of stifling creativity by, you know, giving that power to machines and AI? But of course, Mr. Professor Yoki Chin, who is president of the Future Studios, as well as the movie's executive producer, he said, AI is not here to replace us. He said, but to give us more options for creative expression. I'm on the fence on this because there is truth in what he says, but it's also a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
Yeah.
That's also what Adobe said about AI and generative AI.
Yeah.
Look where Photoshop is now. You know, you can kind of take away graphic designers' jobs in some way.
Yeah.
But is there where we would really want to go?
Yeah.
I mean, aside from AI being just a tool, it kind of transcends that now.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot more advanced.
Yeah.
And you're going to see some jobs being kind of in trouble. So
Okay.
that's the issue I have with
Okay.
AI part.
I think this also goes down to video editor's job, your graphic designer's job. You know, I honestly feel like it's still not ready to replace jobs yet. But yeah, the movie industry could be a whole separate things, especially when it comes to maybe your DP. Do you need a DP right now? Maybe you probably do not need it. But there's so many questions that I feel is not being answered. Like, for example, how long did it take for them to make it? I cannot find any information online about that, because I would like to know, like, is it a bunch of prompts that they just use it? And how many prompts that it took for them to do in order to produce maybe in a one scene situation? Because we all know AI works with prompts, right? So that is one of the questions that I have. What machines did they use? Did they use a bunch of GPUs, and what type of machines? As a tech guy, I would love to know. We would love to know. Yeah. At least we want to understand that. But probably when they did the press conference, these questions were not asked. So maybe they should get people like me and you or Uma Gogler to come and ask the questions. I'm sure we'll be asking these kind of questions. What software did they use? I really want to know. Is it like they're already using Comfy UI, or they just use their own? Because now, there's this videos which is going around, which we are going to be doing a video on that, on how you can create your own AI model using the new M3 Ultra on the Mac Studio, which we have here in the studio. We just haven't tried that out. So these are the questions which I'm wondering, based on your research, and do you actually heard about what exactly software they're using and how long it took?
No, not at all. I would be very interested to know. And I'm really interested to know the workflow and how this was executed. But yeah, I mean, it's the first full AI movie, and surprisingly coming from a Malaysian kind of Singaporean JV, not from
because it's world's first. So this is a huge thing, right? It's not like, you would think that maybe, especially since this is based on Chinese history, you would think that, a Chinese company would do something like this. But I have to say, I'm proud that as a Malaysian and also Singaporean, our neighboring country, they decided to collaborate and make this together. I just wish that we had more information on this in order to have a proper context on what actually happens behind the scenes. How much of a post-editing needs to be done? Like, are you telling me like in a simple prompt and then you do everything? Yeah, so
I'm sure it's not as easy as that, but but I'm really curious to know the workflow and how it's done. Maybe we can revisit this once. They might have another video that showcases behind the scenes and feature.
It's a full-fledged movie. So, like for example, I was only recently introduced to Falling in Reverse, the Ronald song, where it didn't look like green screen at all. I thought that certain parts were using, probably a set. But the whole thing was done in green screen. So it really shows how great post-production has come. Yeah. But again, that's a music video. This is a whole entire movie. No actors whatsoever. Purely AI. So yeah, I guess...
Pretty impressive. Impressive.
Yeah, I think...
And the issue with AI, generative AI, is consistency, right? So how did they solve that problem? I'd like to know.
Yeah, because like for example, just you generate something, so it just comes out like there's an apple and orange, and then you found out that the orange is not orange color, and then you tell to prompt it, the orange is not in orange, so it doesn't just correct the orange; it tends to also correct the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing with AI, right?
I've seen ads that were AI generated and they were pretty good.
Yes, I've seen it too.
That issue is always something that always crops up.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, because if you can produce it once, you cannot...
It's not repeatable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
curious to know. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, we'd like to know what you guys think about this movie and, having a full AI movie.
Stuff. I think this is pretty interesting because first and foremost, like I said, it's the world's first AI GC movie, and it is great that Malaysians and Singaporeans are doing this, but let us know whether you have any concerns about this similar to Vernon. For me, I'm just eager to see it, and then we will judge it based on that news.
You being a content creator and stuff like that, what are your thoughts about AI and that encroaching into your, let's say, your creative flow and
I still think that it's not ready. I really think AI is not ready to replace any job at all. I still am a firm believer that AI is only going to make our lives better, not replace it. We can use it to increase our speed of content creation, like with certain prompts, certain generation, but you cannot. So behind the scenes, I remember Mo was just playing around with thumbnails, trying to generate. half of the time it doesn't work. But when it works,
His
it works.
kicker is Photoshop
Yes,
skills.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I am nowhere afraid of it being replaced. No way that I think that is ready to replace me, replace you, replace Lihud, replace Mo, replace Syed as a tech writer. No way. So I personally feel, I know some people are still very afraid. I do know like close friends like Lenora, she was freaking out, I remember. But as a friend, I told her, I said, there's nothing to be worried about because there are certain things which we don't want to really go into so much, but there are certain jobs probably, maybe like copywriter, maybe those kind of things maybe. But I think from a creative standpoint, there's only so much that AI can generate to completely eradicate people's jobs, for example. Yeah. Especially because, like you said, consistency. Because once it produces this and you ask it to correct something, it doesn't correct it it tends to come up with a whole different generation.
And give you another 3 options.
And the biggest annoyance that both me and Mo also face is that the aspect ratio for ChatGPT specifically has been pain in the butt. Even though we specifically said create a 16:9 thumbnail, it creates a square. So, yeah, I think...
it's not perfect. It's improving. But
yeah.
Not perfect.
So that's the reason why I said that, I don't think we are at that point.
Okay.
So that would be for news number 1. The next news is based on Samsung. They have actually came up with a patent for a new phone with an interchangeable lens. Now, what's interesting is that the camera bump design looks different. It doesn't look like your S series. It looks like something totally new. And
hence the name Edge, right? So
I don't know whether this is going to be the Edge because it is just an interchangeable lens patent.
That's something else.
Yeah, but also I like how the lenses are smaller, which means that it's a bit more pocketable compared to what Xiaomi or even the new Vivo the Vivo X200 Ultra. Then where you have the big lens and stuff like that. It's a cool innovation. I like that. But how many people are actually going to carry these big lenses, right? So the leaks also suggested that it is magnetic, like Xiaomi and like the Vivo
15,
X200 Ultra as well. There's also a Moto patent, which is also interesting because it's probably for autofocus and because this also helps in terms of the communication between the lens and the phone. So what is
it can power some kind of
so
mechanism.
It's not like for the CMF Phone 2 Pro, you just take the physical lens and just put it in the cover and then it changes. Because sometimes you need to adjust the focal length, right? You need to adjust whether or not what do you want to focus. You want to focus on the face, you want to focus on the microphone. Yeah. But what are your thoughts about this particular patent? Is this something that will make Samsung come back with innovation? Because you know how they are slowly going backwards in terms of, not backwards, but left behind with the emergence of Vivo and the Huawei's of the world. Do you think that with this innovation that they can make a comeback on this? Or what are your thoughts about this whole entire thing?
So the first thing is, I think makers or companies, they file patents all the time. So it's just to patent an idea, it puts it out there. And maybe it's to protect interests. I don't know, but sometimes it's just there, and patents don't necessarily transform into or translate into an actual commercial product.
Very good point.
So Apple does this all the time.
Very good point.
You will find plenty, hundreds, thousands of patents that Apple files. Yeah, I think Samsung is the same. But realistically, it looks like something that could happen. From an idea standpoint. And I do like the idea that instead of like a phone case, that something like a moment.
Oh, yes.
Moment has those interchangeable.
The cover and
This is coming stock from a phone manufacturer, which is nice. And it's another kind of a minor way of doing a modular phone, I think. So for something to kind of embark on that, it's interesting. It's something different. They won't be the first, obviously. Like you mentioned, CMF, Xiaomi, Vivo has done it as well. But yeah, it's nicer to talk about that than maybe AI.
That's true.
Because AI is getting boring.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think if there's any other companies who can do something like this, I have that trust that Samsung can do something like this.
Can pull it off, yeah.
Because remember, they are the first one who made the Fold. The first ever Fold was not only announced, but it was commercially available for everybody to use it. It wasn't a concept. So do you feel that Samsung, having their track record of creating things that have never existed before, could they do this as soon as the S series next year, for example?
I don't doubt it. I'm sure they can do it. I'm sure if they were really serious about it, it will probably translate into a commercial product. The question about not many people will probably buy a phone like this or of modular nature. I probably agree with you in that. I think it's great for enthusiasts in a way. It's very niche. I think it's also a bit cumbersome and bulky. So you're going to be carrying a different lens or different lenses with you. But again, it could be something that you want to replace your point and shoot camera with.
Yeah, that's true.
And you'll be able to just bring one device.
I like the idea of them putting a magnetic, like a communication, which means that it is not just typically like what you said, the moment lenses where you're just taking somebody physical and just put it there, and whether you like it or not, you just have to get the right focal length.
It could be a motorized tele zoom, right?
So imagine that, like I said, I like the idea of it talking to each other. At the same time, I like the idea that the size is smaller.
Yeah.
So what you can do is like you can carry like something like you're carrying an earbuds case, right?
Yeah.
So you can put it on your right pocket, and then your phone can be there, and then you go travel and put it there, and then it could be like a zoom lens. You just imagine a small, like a small prime zoom lens go in front.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of cool. In my opinion, I think if Samsung really goes ahead with this, I feel it could make an innovation comeback. Because remember, even though their Fold series is not the most wow fold at this point of time, but it's still one of the highest selling folds in the world because of the customer or the consumer's trust towards Samsung as a brand. Totally. And I am hoping that this will come in as soon as possible before someone else do it, so that it kind of brings Samsung back to the map again. Because I think, like I said, technology when it comes to smartphone creation, making this kind of stuff, it's always the Chinese companies who always makes it first, right? Which is great. I have no issue with that. But it's nice that if we have another brand which is going to come in and kind of fight for that idea of being innovative a bit more.
Sure. But I mean, if you look at Samsung's history, it's done a lot of weird things. It's done a lot of, it's come out with cameras that have Android, which tries to be a phone, and they've done phones that try to be a camera, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the first one to give out the different aperture sizes for the S9. We had the topic before. So,
So they've done a lot of things, and I think it's nice to be brave and a little bit brave and, drive innovation. I think that's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes it may not be... have a lot of commercial value in that sense. But yeah, definitely makes it interesting. And that's why we're in tech, right?
Yeah. How about the camera array? Do you like this new design, or do you feel like, because it's a patent, that's why they don't want to give out too much? Is that something? Because if it's going to be the S series next year, it means they're going to finally change the look of it. Because for the past how many generations of S series, it's been the same.
A bit boring and
but
monotonous.
It's funny that we talk about that, because the regular Xiaomi, like the 15, 14, 13, was all the same design too. So everybody is kind of doing that. So yeah, personally for me, I hope that this will come to next year's S series, just for the sake of refreshing. Because we also had this conversation behind the scenes when the S25 series came out. It's like, it was good, but it wasn't like, wow.
Yeah, there's another kind of talk update, which is a bit underwhelming.
Even the AI additions, they were good. Like the whole music separation thing, that was amazing. I just felt like it was not talked enough. Yeah. But that is just like maybe a couple, like 2 or 3 different updates only. So yeah, hopefully this comes to the S series next year. Speaking of Samsung again, the third news is based on
earlier.
Yeah, which you kind of leaked earlier, which, to give people's context, is the S25 leaks and launch. So I'll put it over to you. What are the current leaks, and what is the exact information that we know as of the recording of this video?
Well, I don't know why, but I think we've talked about why manufacturers going back to that super slim obsession with having super slim devices.
Yeah.
So S25 is going to be super slim.
The Edge,
It's
you mean?
going to be, S25 Edge is going to be super slim and super sleek, and expected to be launched and unpacked on the 13th.
Is it usual that unpack happens on the May of 13th or even in the month of May? Or is this a new unpack? Because based on my research and remembering, I don't think there's this May unpacked. Like
I'm actually not sure.
usually is early of the year for the S series, and then towards the end is the fold and the flip, and then the A series is not like a full-fledged unpack. Sometimes it
But
goes.
this could be kind of like they're treating it like a different line, perhaps deviation from the main S25.
Okay.
I mean, it's still towing the AI line again. I mean, based on the leaks,
Yeah.
still towing the AI line, and Samsung calls it an engineering marvel, which I probably won't doubt, because to make something so super slim and ensure that it's durable, I think that's an
I
engineering
saw it
feat.
in MWC. It was on display,
Yeah.
but we couldn't touch it. It looked good. It looks thin, like really thin. I think in the end of the day, like we always said, we need to hold the
Yeah.
device,
Yeah.
and we need to make sure software is fine. We need to make sure that the battery that you're using, we do not know whether or not it's going to be the silicon carbon
But
battery.
apparently it's small.
Yeah.
It's less than 4,000 milliampere. So there is a little bit of a handicap, right?
Yes.
So what's happening, Mr. Mobile World? What's happening with the obsession with thin and handicapped devices? Come on, man.
Very good point. So, according to the global live stream event, which was actually announced on their own newsroom, which is interesting. So, which means it seems like it is already official. You can tune in on 9 a.m. on Tuesday. And of course, if that really happens, and if that's the case, because you can see like official pictures are already been out, we will definitely talk about that.
Nothing new, is it?
Don't know.
Especially with Unpacked.
Yeah. And also, my biggest concern is whether or not is this going to be released in Malaysia in the first place.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah, because
It's just an important
sometimes
market.
it's hard to say these days because it's always where you expect this. It's same like we had a conversation about the CMF Phone 2 Pro. They go like, it's like how the Galaxy Ring came very late to Malaysia, right? So is this going to be one of those products whereby they're going to be country specific or is going to be available globally? Because what you say and what we say about who's asking for this slim phone, so probably Malaysia or Singapore or this Southeast Asian market is not asking for a slim phone. So they can look at their data and say, maybe we won't sell it in Malaysia. We won't sell it in Singapore. So that could be something.
Who knows?
So the current specs that we have for the leaks is a 6.7-inch QHD AMOLED panel. We all know Samsung comes up with an
It's
amazing
pretty
screen.
flagship specs. Lah.
Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy. It's nice that for Galaxy chipset, because it is true, when you do gaming, especially on a Samsung phone, which has the Snapdragon 8 Elite, it does wonders compared to the likes of the Poco F7 Ultra, which has the same chipset. I'm not going to talk about the RAM. That's typical. It's 12 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage. I'm not confident with the high resolution 200 megapixel wide angle lens, because if this is the Edge series, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of a compromise. And also, if it's going to be so thin, I might be wrong, I don't think they can fit like a big 200 megapixel main lens. What do you think about that?
I don't know. What's disappointing to me is like only 2 cameras. What hell? What's happening?
That's true. And yeah, the battery is 3,900 milliamps, which is a concern.
Yeah, it is. It is. Again, it's a compromise because with a device so thin, even with a silicon carbon battery, I think it's still going to be a handicap.
They could have put more, because we all know how thin the silicon carbon battery is. Probably they didn't want to have a similar Note 7 series issue to happen. We do not know.
Let's not go there.
Yeah, so probably that could be the reason why they were playing it a bit more safe, as opposed to putting it a lot of or big size of millions of battery. So yeah, that is the leaks that we have so far. You can actually head on to the newsroom I hope it's still there for you all to see. Apparently, it's going to be released in Malaysian time on Tuesday. But if you are from any other country who's listening to this, especially to this particular audio podcast, it is going to be unveiled on the May of 13th. Yeah, so 13th of May 2025.
It's 4 days away, and I'm pretty confident you're gonna see everything that's out there within the next 1-2 days.
Yeah, I doubt they're going to do any like on ground
It's a
kind of
virtual
event.
thing, right?
Yeah, it's a virtual thing.
Live
so
streamed.
you can actually tune in for a live stream as well. So that would be
Awesome.
for that particular news, which is the third news of today. The fourth news of today, this one we're already laughing because of...
The best news of the day, you mean?
So the iPhone Air.
What's in the air
Oh,
today?
what's in the air? Love is in the air. So when I saw this headline, it had to be covered. So I understand where side came from with this because it's still news here. So it actually comes down to he said, she said kind of thing. So previously, Mark Gurman said from Bloomberg, he said that, it's going to be iPhone 17 Air, which is this year. And remember I said that I don't think they're going to be releasing a brand new phone this year, meaning like a new Air model, probably with a change of the camera bump and all possible. So now the headline is iPhone 19 Air rumored for 2027, because 17, 18, 19, with a bigger screen. So that is apparently news.
So 2 iterations away, they're talking about it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
The reason why,
Even before the 17 is
because there's another rumor that says that Apple might consider not releasing phones every year. So that's another rumor.
So I find that more interesting than the iPhone 19 news.
I agree. Yes, I agree.
So that breaks the cycle that's become so traditional, the release cycle.
As if you were in Apple shoes, or if you are a product manager, are you in line, or are you encouraging these biannual releases instead of releasing a flagship every year? We had this question before. We didn't talk about it in the podcast because this is before the podcast was even created, our particular podcast. But what is your opinion on biannual releases?
I think it's a very strategic move, and it adds kind of flexibility to the product lineup. You kind of be able to adapt to the change of the market better. So I'm not sure what Apple has up its sleeves, but I think it's a break of tradition, pretty much. And I think one of the things that was mentioned in the article was that it prevents the Pro models to be overshadowed by the standard iPhones, which kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Kind of makes sense.
Okay.
But what the report said was also that Apple is expected to dramatically change its Pro lineup or redesign its Pro lineup in 2026. I'm not sure how it looks.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like an iPhone 17 Air.
I'm also eager to find out, and I would love to have your thoughts on this. If they were to do these biannual releases, how about the numbering though? That's
a good point.
Yeah, so imagine that if they're going to do this biannual,
Maybe
so is it going to follow?
17.5.
So how are they going to follow? So if you're saying iPhone 19 is 2027, so iPhone 18, if they are not going to launch anything, so is iPhone 18 not going to even exist because they want to follow the exact thing, or they're going to...
I think it's still going to be sequential.
Okay.
Yeah. Doesn't make sense otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's harder for people to understand the exact year. So for example, S25 is year 2025. You get what I mean? So then people might think, it's same like the iPhone 16e.
And I never thought about it that way in terms of year.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was always sequential, although they skipped some versions, right?
Yeah.
Some numbers.
I guess Apple didn't really care about that. That's why even the iPhone 16e, but remember the iPhone 16e, if they didn't care, they wouldn't call it an iPhone 16e. Yeah. They would call it maybe an SE 4 or 5. The latest one was supposed to be, I think it's 4.
Yeah. But I think they really wanted to unify the product line.
That's
rather
true.
to have something divergent like the SE, which was like an oddball, right?
Yeah.
It was a good oddball. I miss it. I think they should still have it.
Yeah.
We had this conversation.
Yeah.
And I still think that they really should still have the SE.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Apple's trying to push everyone up the chain so that we buy more, more expensive.
But because it's going to be released
models.
on year 2027, which is 2 years from now, it does sound maybe a bit more believable to me. But at the same time, I'm going to throw a spanner into the whole entire works here, because when the Apple Vision Pro was released, immediately after a month after that, there were so many different rumors saying about how, there's going to be an affordable version of Apple Vision. And until now, nothing.
We've not seen it.
Yeah.
But apparently the Apple Vision Pro 2 is coming out, right?
Yeah, so
rumor.
Yeah, so it's a rumor about that, and then there's another rumor about how they're going to stop creating it. So,
but to be honest, the Apple Vision Pro to me was never supposed to be a consumer product.
Yeah,
it was for
I
me.
agree.
It was built for developers to create the ecosystem of apps and experiences, which then would translate in probably to a more consumer level product, which wasn't the non-Pro.
Yeah.
But when people talk about sales of the Pro and all that stuff, to me it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's not that important.
Correct.
Important is building that ecosystem.
Very good point. So, of course, stay tuned here on What the Tech for you all to know what are the latest news, or is there even a follow-up when it comes to this? Personally, for me, I like the idea of a biannual approach, because that happens to the other products from Apple, like iPad, for example.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily always release it every single year.
Yeah.
The Mac seems like they're pretty consistent every single year, but the
It was
difference is not,
it was a very PC thing to do,
Yeah,
right? Because
exactly.
every year they'll do an update, even though it's really just a spec bump. It's not a big kind of upgrade.
Yeah, so I think I'm with you, and I'm with the people who wants
Apple
to
caught
release.
up, I think, with the industry.
Could be.
They adapted maybe the past decade or so.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
They never
I
used to
feel,
do that.
I just feel that the biannual approach would be a better approach for all of their products. At least like there is quite an upgrade, and also the team behind the scenes for Apple can just relax and enjoy life a bit, because it's pretty stressful, I can imagine, behind the scenes, right? Okay, so that would be for the news this week. There are more. So if you guys would like to know which specific topics that you want to talk about or want us to talk about in the podcast, make sure to head on to our website at www.adamlobo.tv, where we do have our daily tech news over there, because some of the topics we might have not talked about it because we predicted you might or you might not like it. So if you have feedback on what exactly you want to listen or want to talk about and we can discuss it, just let us know in the comment section below as well. Yep. And since we're recording this on a Friday, there are probably some news that happens like later tonight or something, which actually we did not cover.
Like S25 Edge leaks.
Yeah.
Again.
Now, I did mention that one of my most exciting things about our podcast is the community segment. So Said has come up with a very good, engaging question about the smartphone cameras, right? So the question is that if all of y'all had a choice for a better secondary camera, would it be an ultra-wide angle camera, a telephoto camera, or a macro camera, which you all know I love so much. I love
macro shots.
Yeah, so
especially of your face.
in the pause. Okay, so the votes came in 159, like I mentioned earlier. What's interesting is that we would think, I don't know about you, so I'll get your input first. We would think that everybody would want a wide angle or an ultra wide camera, but everybody has voted for a telephoto camera instead, compared to having a wide angle or an ultra wide camera.
I'm quite surprised at the results.
Because usually for smartphones, you know how like if you have two cameras, people prefer to have that versatility of having the ultra wide camera and the main camera. Yeah. But it's interesting how everybody is talking about they want a telephoto camera. So what are your thoughts about this?
Discovered the benefits of the telephoto.
What are the benefits in your opinion?
Compared to wide angle. I'm quite surprised. I thought it would be a little bit more balanced in terms of what they picked.
I agree.
So based on the poll, the telephoto camera takes the cake, 65% compared to wide angle. For me, If I were to pick, it would definitely be telephoto.
Okay, why?
Because number one, I think it's more versatile, and we tend to want to zoom into things to get a better view. And number two, you really need a telephoto camera for portraits because you get better depth of field, you get better, more natural blurred background, and there's less distortion, to your object.
Yeah,
It's purely coming from a photography.
that's a good point.
Wide angle is great when you are doing establishing shots and you need kind of like environment. Maybe, you need when you're in a tight space and you need a little bit more of that place and you need to capture more. A wide angle would be great. But I think in most cases, people use the main camera and the telephoto the most. We tend to want to zoom things, zoom into things, even documents, because I'm old, so I need to. Or if I'm building a PC and I can't see the little things on the CPU board, then I'll need to capture and zoom in, that kind of thing.
When it
Purely
comes
from an age point of view.
Yeah. When it comes to comments, though, we have a very naughty comment which says that
with telezoom.
telephoto definitely the best of the three because easier to spy on people. I don't know who this fellow wants to spy on, but okay.
He does have a point. I mean, it does work that way. You can spy on people with a telephoto. I wouldn't encourage
but
it. But
I would think that if you want to spy on people, telephoto lens is not enough. You need to use a periscope lens because it's further. So I know what this is talking about.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you for your feedback.
Or you can use a modular phone and just plug in an
Dane says that
lens.
it's easier to capture long range photo. I am going to go into this. Be very interesting. And then we have another comment coming from Ion. Yeah, so he's saying that telephoto has more advantages. I'm sure he means advantage. Okay, so thank you for your feedback. For me, when I saw this poll, I was like, huh? And then I took a step back. I was trying to understand, okay, what are the shots, what are the photos, whenever I take photo samples from every single phone, and when I rename these photos so that, when Lihud edits the videos, he knows which photos to put in there. I always get more excited with the telephoto cameras, more than the ultra-wide. Another huge problem which a lot of non-flagship phones have is the color shift between the ultra-wide lenses and the main lens.
Yeah, that has got to do with just the quality of ultra-wide cameras.
So why I prefer the telephoto lens is because usually the telephoto modes or the telephoto lens is a focal length or an overall image which doesn't really fall far away from the main lens. Hence why when I use the iPhone, I use a Xiaomi 15 Ultra, even the regular Xiaomi 15 or even the Vivo X200 Pros of the world. Whenever I take a telephoto camera, looks nice. It gives you that wow factor. And I also found out that if you use the telephoto mode and if you do shots where you have like a foreground kind of image, it looks so much nicer.
Yep.
Rather than you taking the ultra-wide camera and then you take a photo. But speaking of age generation gap, we do not know that the people who voted here... We do not know that people who voted here are
I feel
all
the gap
within,
now.
whether or not it's within our age people, because the 0.6 selfie, you can't do that with a telephoto camera.
Yeah, that's true.
You'll be like, you got your nose.
Yeah, that's true.
So
no, I mean, a selfie is different.
Could it be that
Selfie
the
is
answers are coming from people who don't take selfies? That is something that is worth also looking into. But personally for me, like I said, I thought that I would need the ultra-wide angle or the wide angle lens more often. But based on, like I said, when I was taking photos, I just find like the telephoto lenses, especially like for your 5 times zoom, the 10 times zoom. I remember when Liu and I, we went to China, we took the Huawei P60 Pro and we saw the 10 times zoom is so sharp at night. And it gives us a more wow factor than, oh my God, look at the ultra-wide camera. There's no edge distortion. You get what I mean? Again, I'm having problems in distortion. But So do you think that it's because an age thing, or you feel like even though your people who like to take your 0.6 selfies is dying off,
I don't think it's an age thing. I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's really about versatility. And it's just more versatile with the telephoto.
Okay.
You can do more stuff to it.
Let's talk about the macro lens though.
No.
Because you know how much I love the macro lens.
I mean,
Why do you know? People who tune into this channel, he edits the videos, he knows how much I love the macro lens. I'll shit on it from day to day basis, just like how I shit on Honor.
I mean, it's
So can you tell me why no macro lens for you?
because it's just not useful in terms of a day-to-day basis. On a day-to-day basis, you don't. Do you go shoot with a macro lens every day? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's a nice. I think it's a nice tool for creative expression if you like taking maybe bugs or leaves or flowers or stuff like that, or maybe textures. Because I think some of the macro lenses are really
picture
good.
of ice.
Yeah. Some of them are really good, very impressive. Even the iPhones are really good at macro
Yeah, but
photography.
you see, like for the iPhones
But
of
is
the
it
world,
useful? No.
for the iPhones of the world, they are not using a dedicated macro camera anyway. So that's why
tied to the
my
main lens.
argument is that
Do
if an
you need a
iPhone,
dedicated
you
one?
don't need a dedicated one, because if the iPhone don't have a dedicated macro lens, or even the Vivo doesn't have a dedicated macro lens, but they use their image processing and they use different lenses to have that thing. So like for example, the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, it uses the telephoto lens instead of using the ultra wide lenses to go with the macro mode. Hence why that their macro lens is about 70 mm. 70
Apple's
mm
the same,
on a,
right? The iPhone is kind of similar too, right? Uses a
so you use a different lens. So for me, the idea of not having a dedicated macro lens is the way to go, because image processing is so important. And this is based on Mr. Who's the Boss video, the CMF Phone 2 Pro. I was eager to test this out because according to him, you know how they have that modular lens to give you macro mode. So he tested out that, and then he took it out and just used a telephoto lens and took a picture. It looks identical. So, is it the need for that? So, I think that's the reason why they didn't bring to Malaysia, because they're scared I will test that out. So, yeah, I think what has happened is that the macro lens is like the depth sensor. Remember, they had black and white camera. They just did it because they just wanted to flex. Oh, we have 20 cameras at the back of the phone. Buy it now. Could that be the case?
Maybe that could be the case. I don't know. It's better to slap on a telephoto rather than a macro.
So I
Macro
guess.
shouldn't
But yeah, we really
exist.
appreciate the comments coming and how
Any
you
other
guys.
weird comments?
Yeah. So far, that's the only comments. I think it also comes down to Said's question. So Said better put some extra effort, like how you did over here. But as usual, if you have any questions that you want us, or any things that you want us to discuss about, let us know in the comment section below. The last thing that we're going to be talking about is the video releases. It was supposed to have more videos this week, but there is a particular brand of videos we're supposed to release. The whole launch was postponed, so we had no choice to push it next week. So next week you'll find out. But as of this recording of this video, that means by the time you watch this video on Saturday, we have already released a video of the Sonos Arc Ultra and how to achieve Dolby Atmos 9.2.4 setup. It's a follow-up from our... Probably about 2 years ago, we did a video about Dolby Atmos 7.2.1. So now what I have done is that I've changed the Sonos Arc to the Sonos Arc Ultra, immediately making it from 7 to a 9 because of the extra speakers. And I've added 2 sub, which is a sub Gen 3 and a sub Gen 4. I wanted you to be in that video. Unfortunately, last minute you couldn't make it. I would love to get you because you're an audiophile like me. But
I wouldn't call me an audiophile, but audio enthusiast.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, it would be nice that you were in there to just get a sort of a balanced listening reaction as well. Also, hopefully next week we'll be doing an in-depth review of the Vivo V50 Lite, 6,500 milliamps of battery, amazing stuff.
Amazing.
Picture cameras is great. Video, you have to wait and see. You watch the video, then you'll actually know. So with that, we'd like to close today's podcast session. Thank you so much for watching. This is episode number 16. For What the Tech, my name is Adam Lobo.
And I'm Vernon signing off.
And
See
we
you
will
guys in the
see
next
you
one.
guys next week.